So I had something scary that happened to me about a month ago, and something that I was involved with put me in a position where there was a non-zero chance that I was going to go to prison. And it shook me to my core because, like most men, I have this kind of uniquely terrifying fear of going to prison. So scared that I would go to prison and I wouldn't make any friends. And so I called a buddy of mine who has been inside, as the kids say, and I said, "Hey, so what should I do?" And he's like, "Frazier, you got to join a gang if you get there." I was like, "Okay, well, that sounds good." And he told me something I had no idea. He's like, the gangs in prison are not like clubs. It's not like Model UN and like Ultimate Frisbee. The gangs in prison are organized around race. I know, seriously. It's like, it's what century are we in, right? But I spent a lot of time on college campuses, so I kind of know the deal. So I said to him, I was like, "Well, what do you think I should do?" And he's like, "Frazier, I think you should join the white gang." And I was like, nope. That is crazy racist. I will not do that right off the gate. Okay, I think all the races should have a shot at having me as part of their clubs. And so I said, "Hey, I have an idea. What if you invited some of your friends who have been in the inside, mix up the ethnicities, and have them come over here and let me audition for them?" And he looked at me just like this, just shaking his head with that look that says, "God, you're brave." So he did it, and they came over. The first one were the Latin Kings, which I was super excited about because I had like 5 years of Latin in high school, like AP Latin. And he told me that there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, but that was okay because I had 2 years of college Spanish. So I went in. Now, I will say, I think I insulted them because I was leaning pretty heavy on my pronunciation. I said, "Hey, any of you guys here from Nicaragua?" Or, "I just got back from Valencia. Do you guys know Denise over at the cafeteria?" So they were kind of a hard pass. But next up was the black gang. And first off, I said, let's address this. I said, we're not using that term, okay? That term is antiquated. That term is offensive. That is basically a slur. I said, we're going to call this a black club. And I didn't want to make the mistake that I said, or that I did with the Latin Kings, right? So because I think people do that a lot, right? Like they try to like color up or like try to be street or whatever. So I was like, I went in there with like a Rush concert t-shirt. I was wearing an ascot. My first question to them is, who's your favorite Friends character, right? But you know what? Good intentions aside, I couldn't even help myself. Like 2 sentences in, I just casually dropped that I voted for Obama. You know, I was saying how much I liked the new Tyler Perry movie. It was just, I don't know, I in spite of myself. And after a while, one of the guys was like, "You know what? I think you should just join the white gang." And I was like, okay. So, you know, those were my stretch gangs, right? And I did it. I applied. So then I went over to my safety gang, and they had like kind of a formal interview process. And they said, first off, like, "Do you have any of the mongrel races in you?" And I've learned enough about like being in corporate where I know to answer the question you want to answer, not the one that they ask. So I said, that is a great question. I think my biggest strength is in kind of event organization. And, you know, they responded to it. I kind of distracted them and deflected. It was interesting because, first off, it went really, really well. And they asked me to pledge. And they told me that if they hadn't accepted me, then they would have killed me on the spot. So it was kind of a nice contrast. They had a big old ceremony. There was lots of saluting. And after a bit, I was sitting there with these guys, and I was like, okay, you know, this fear that I had is kind of dissipated a little bit. And so I was kind of at peace. And so then I just stood up and I said, "Am I going to be a top or a bottom